Hey guys, Keith here. It's been a while since I've done an update video. We're now on version 45, which is our final release for 2017, and my last video covered only up to version 33. So we've got 11 releases to go through. There's been a huge amount of change. I was looking through the list and there was over 70 enhancements, ignoring all the bugs that were both introduced and squashed in that time frame. There's been a whole bunch of enhancements. So I'm going to break the video into two. I'm going to go over the xSchedule enhancements first, and then I'll come back around and I'll do the xLights enhancements. And I'm going to go through them basically in the order in which they appeared in the README file. So it'll be a bit all over the place, but you'll cope. And I know most of you won't watch the video entirely at any rate, so we'll see how we go. All right. The first one then is tooltip buttons to button parameters. What this is in the edit options, you've got this ability to go and create buttons, and I know some people have gone and done so, but it was often quite difficult when you would come here to know exactly what the parameters were. So now this tooltip will appear that will tell you the sorts of parameters that it's expecting. In this case, it wants a name of a playlist, so I'd have to type in one of my playlist names. This one here, it's looking for a number. So it wants to set a volume to a number, which would be a 0 to 100 to set the volume. Play the specified playlist step once only. So here you need to specify both a playlist and a playlist step name so it knows what to play. So hopefully that makes things a little bit easier. So that's that one. Add the ability to share schedule button definitions. Look, no one's done it yet, but look, technically what you can do is if you've created a really cool button that you think other people might find useful, you can now come over here and export it. It will create an X button file, which then someone else can come along later and import if they find that button a particularly useful button. Now, obviously a button that refers specifically to one of your playlists or your steps is probably not that useful, but there are some others in there that might be useful, so I thought I'd create a way for you to share them. This one here is one that a whole bunch of people have stumbled across. This applies to both xSchedule and xLights. We had a number of people that were experiencing problems where they'd be trying to output to lights and their lights would be blinking and flashing. And invariably it was because they had xLights running and outputting to lights as well as xSchedule running and outputting to lights. And so I put in place some processes to try and keep track of what was doing what. Now this works most of the time. It works okay. I definitely don't see it raising errors very often, but one place where it can get into trouble is if xLights crashes and it can be left in a state where it thinks something else is outputting to lights when it isn't really doing so, and you'll get a warning. Now the one thing about this is it is truly just a warning. It doesn't actually stop the outputting to lights occurring. So if you get this warning and you know you've just crashed the program and it's actually a false warning, it doesn't actually stop it from working. Everything will work as normal. You'll just have to dismiss the error and continue. So that's that one. Add the ability to disable output processes. So I know some people are using this. So output processes are these processes that let you manipulate the data that xSchedule is about to send out to your controllers at the last minute. Offers you, the ability to repoint channels to different locations and the like, and dimming things, and even reversing color orders or changing color orders on pixels on the fly as it goes out. But now what you can do is you can add one of these, I don't know, set it to 1, and then you can come in later and actually just quickly disable it, which doesn't delete the definition remains, but you can disable it if you just want to do some testing without it in place, and then you can come back later and just re-enable it. Well, you should be able to re-enable it. Okay, it seems like there's a bug there. All right, I'll have to have a look at that. So that's what that one's all about. A dead pixel color output process. Okay, so what this is this dead channel. Now, every now and then what you will get is you'll get a pixel which loses, I don't know, the green channel. And the problem with that is that whenever your lights are turning on all white, that dead channel means that you're left with a missing color, which makes the pixel look odd. Now, we've had for a while the ability to override the pixel and just set it always to off, but it seems like a bit of a waste not to use the pixel when it's perfectly capable of still outputting red and blue. It just can't output green. And so what you can do here is you can put in the channel number of that green pixel data, so specifically the green element, and say to it, well, actually what you do is you put in the start channel for the pixel itself, and then you say whether it's the first, second, or third channel within that pixel, and say that's the dead channel. And what happens is xLights will xSchedule will disable that pixel when that light needs to be lit. So, for instance, when it goes white, if the green channel is out, it will blank the pixel out, because obviously that pixel can't display white because it's missing its green channel. But when that pixel tries to be red, red doesn't require the green channel, and so xSchedule will play the pixel as normal, and the pixel will light up red. And so it just minimizes the number of situations when that pixel has to be blanked out. So that's adding a dead channel output process, just to fix up that one pixel that's got that one channel missing without having to go and cut the thing out, for those that are particularly fastidious, which I know most people are. Add the ability to suppress virtual matrices if showing video or images. Okay, so this is the wrong place. So in your playlist here, when you have a video, you can do, so if you're using virtual matrices to maybe display some sequence data or something onto your projector, you may want to suppress that when a video shows, so that the video will always show over the top. And so suppressing the virtual matrix option will force that virtual matrix to be suppressed so that the video is visible on your matrix and allows on your projector. So it allows you to use a projector sometimes as a virtual matrix and sometimes as a video player, and know that that's going to work okay. The other thing I'd highlight here is I've also added this cache video option. What the cache video option does is it actually spawns off a separate thread which runs in the background, which actually pre-caches the video ahead of playing. What you'll find is this will generally deliver better video performance than you would get normally. xSchedule can deal with smaller videos without too much difficulty, but when you're running really large video files, the processing the video can actually get in the way of xSchedule pushing out its data, and caching the video will ensure that that's all done on a separate thread and take advantage of the machine that you're running it on. The other options here that are new is there's the ability to loop video, which means if the video is not as long as the FSCQ that it's being played with, the video will get to the end and it will actually loop back and replay. And you also now have the option to both fade the video in at the beginning and also fade it out at the end. So rather than having the video cut off hard at the end, you might want to fade it in and then fade it out, so it looks much more seamless. I did that with my virtual Santa this year, and it meant that as he disappeared at the end of these interlude type sequences, it didn't look like he just suddenly disappeared. It just looked like the lights had faded down and he'd disappear. So a few options there. Now these options are available on both the FSCQ and video option, and also on the video option, which is the one I'm using here. So that's that one. Packets per second display, so that's down here on the bottom where it displays the number of packets per second. So this is a great little indicator that actually something's happened. So when I click play, you can see that it says that I'm outputting over, it's very loud, 2,400 packets per second. And so that just gives you a feeling for the fact that it's actually pushing data out, which is sometimes useful to have something visual showing what's going on. That number will vary a little bit. It does literally look at how many packets went out in a particular second, and so you'll always get some packets that sort of fall on either side of the second boundary, so you will get some minor variation in that number. We talked about xSchedule, we talked about video looping, and we talked about fade in and fade out. Window position details. This is, again, if I go back into the video option here, It shows up here exactly where on the screen the video is going to be displayed. This happens to be on another monitor because my projector is normally plugged in. And when you click on the position window, which you now can't see because it's on another screen, yeah, it will also show that up on the position window. So yeah, just some numbers so you can do a quick comparison. So that lets me come down here and quickly compare these two and see that they're in exactly the same location without having to open the window up and check. It's just a quick thing. Universe Start Channel. Okay, so in many of the places in xSchedule, you can have to specify a start channel. So for instance, in this FECQ, if I want to limit the number of channels, I can type in a start channel here. This used to all be absolute, but now it will support, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to press enter. This will now support universe start channel type formats. It'll also support output and start channel formats as well. So you don't have to keep on typing in or work out what the absolutes are if you're more comfortable with the universe and start channel elements. So that's all good. Allow play list buttons to play. Yes. Okay. So it used to be if you'd selected the schedule item here, you couldn't click play selected. You'd have to go back up and select the playlist. But obviously when you have selected a schedule, it's obvious which playlist you would be referring to. So now buttons that require you to have selected a playlist also work if you selected one of the underlying schedules. Selectable audio devices. It took me a few releases to get this working, but as at the last release, it does work. It only works on Windows, but what it lets me do is it lets me choose which audio device the audio should be output to. So if you want to send your audio to your radio via one of your outputs, but you want all your system sounds and everything else to work off your default device, you can use this to force the audio to be sent to one location. And like I say, I know it works because I've managed to get it tested and everything else. Handling of mixed audio rates. I should have fixed this one a long time ago because Dan actually fixed it on the Macintosh, and it was only recently I realized it would actually help on Windows. It used to be if you were running a mixture of songs with different bit rates, so commonly used bit rate is something like 44/100. But if you had a mix of bit rates, what would sometimes happen is xSchedule would load multiple audio files at once, and if it had mixed bit rates, it would play one slow or one fast, and not everything would sound right. This change here basically means that xLights will recode the audio when it loads to be all the same bit rate, so no longer will there be problems with the speed of the audio. Everything should work fine. Adding a visual clue that xSchedule is serving web requests. Basically, I'll do this by bringing this over here. So if I just type in localhost :8080, which is what I think this is on, you can see down here in the bottom right hand corner this little flashing web icon that indicates that xSchedule is actually serving up web requests. So if you want to know whether there's a web client that's running, etc., which there still is because the web page continues to poll for data, and so you can see here that this is actually actively serving up web requests. Although it should clear, not sure why it didn't clear, but anyway, that's what that's all about. Okay. We did that. We did that. We did that. Optionally support text rendering if text to be rendered is blank. So I don't have any of these, but let me go in and quickly create one here. We'll add a text. So normally with text, you'd be putting in the format % text here. And what would happen is this would then render over the top of a virtual matrix or a physical matrix. But the problem is if you were using this text as maybe a mask reveal so that the text adopted the underlying color of the matrix or something, if the text was blank, then the matrix would be blank. So there's now this option, render when text is blank, and if you deselect that, what it will mean is that the text effect won't blank out the matrix. It won't overlay the matrix if there is no text to display. So if you're using the text here to maybe display messages that users have sent you or something like that, and every now and then you have no messages to display, and so you just display blank data, but you want the some underlying effect to appear on the matrix at the time, this option allows that to happen. Show schedule end time when schedule is running. Okay, so this one doesn't include some of the latest builds, but how do I do that? I'm going to quickly create a schedule. 7 to 9. Yeah, today will be fine. It's not actually running yet. It'll kick off in 15 seconds. And when it does, hopefully, it'll say when it's going to finish. I can't remember if I shared audio, so this is going to blast at you or not, or it's just going to blast at me. So there it is kicking off, and here it's telling you what date and time it's going to stop. So yeah, it shows you what date and time it's going to stop. And even better, when you add 10 minutes to the schedule, it will actually add 10 minutes to that time. So you will know what time it's actually going to stop based on any additions that you've made to the schedule time. Show the controller status. Okay, I've been ignoring this, but down here it shows you the status of all of my controllers. The description here is taken from the first output that is defined on this controller in xLights. It shows the IP address and that description, and it shows it in red because all of my controllers are offline at the moment. If they were online, it would show up in green. It will also show any COM port controllers as well on here with an indication of whether they're actually connected or not. And so it gives you a very quick, simple view of the state. Now these are updated once a minute. If you're on Windows, xSchedule will actually ping each one of these controllers and look for a response. If you're on Macintosh or Linux, that doesn't support pinging. So instead what it will attempt to do is open the controller's web page. And if that's successful, it will show it as online. If the controller is a TCP IP-based controller, but it doesn't support a web page, then I think it shows up in amber, which basically means I'm not entirely sure whether it's online or offline, but it's definitely not something that I can see. So it's one of those things you'll just have to get used to what it actually displays. And then the final two changes relate to Open Sound Control. So Open Sound Control is one of many standards for integrating players of various types in theatre and the like. And so what I've added is there's an open sound control ability to act as a master and a slave. And so this basically defines some OSC messages which can be used to synchronize with xSchedule. Both OSC remote means that xSchedule is basically listening for certain packets, and based on that it will take actions, and as an OSC master it will be sending out those messages. To see those messages, you come into the configuration. Basically the way OSC works is you have a path, which is basically kind of the message, and you can use things like the step name and the like out of your schedule in these messages. You get to specify the ports and everything else. And you also get to specify what sort of data is sent along. So in this case, it's configured to send as a master. So if it's the master, it's going to send out a message called /timecode/step name. It's going to broadcast it, so it'll go to everyone on port 9000. And the data that it will send out is the number of seconds as a floating point number where you're currently up to in the song, and it will send it about every 16 frames, I think it is. You can also send out a millisecond number, or you can choose to send out a frame, and those frame rates don't have to be the same as the frame rates of your sequence, and so you can use some of the industry standard frame rates as well. There's also a progress one, which will send out a floating point number which represents the percentage of the progression through that particular step. And then, of course, there's obviously the remote, and this is the actual message. There's a couple of possible messages that it will receive, and again, you get to specify the port number, and obviously the times and the frames, you get to choose which one's there. So this one's a little bit involved. I did ask if there was anyone who was interested in OSC, and I didn't get a lot of response, so I've gone and implemented this. Hopefully it's okay. If it's not okay, I'm sure someone will speak up and tell me that it doesn't work, and we'll work out what's wrong. The other thing I did with OSC was I did add a playlist item in here called an OSC, and what this allows you to do is basically send an arbitrary message to whatever device you happen to have that can listen to OSC. You can specify the IP address. If you specify the broadcast address, it will broadcast the message. You get to specify the port that it sends it to, and then you get to specify, one or more parameters and a specified value. So if you've got another device on the network that you'd like to send an event to, and it happens to listen to OSC, then hopefully this gives you the ability to do that, including strings and floats and integers and the like, and so forth. So yeah, a whole bunch of smaller changes. There were also a whole bunch of bug fixes that came out in xSchedule. Overall, it was a reasonably good season. There was definitely a couple of bugs that bit me, particularly late with the New Year's issues, etc., and they've all been fixed and will be out in 2018.1 if you haven't already grabbed the version that I pushed out for Windows. So yeah. So that's pretty much everything that's changed in xSchedule, and there's clearly a bug or two that I spotted in there as I went through it, which I'll have to go back and fix now. So thanks, guys, and I'll publish another video with all the xLights changes.